for taking time out of your night. I know how craziness, and we had practice making dinner. I actually pulled up and still had my apron on dinner. I was like, okay. So thank you for coming out. If you want to do the next slide, I'm going to keep telling her to do the slide. I don't have a clicker. Okay, so my name is Adrienne Thompson. I'm a mom to 3 boys. My 15-year-old's will be 16 in a couple weeks. And I have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old. And they're all twice exceptional. I bet if they got official diagnosis, we have lots of different labels and other things amongst all 3 of them. And so I'm a parent coach. I help parents take their transform their relationship with their kids as a source of stress. You're always frustrated or overwhelmed, or you are behaving in ways that you never thought you would behave when you became a parent, and I help you find joy in parenting. And I have a 12-week program called the Purpose Transformation Program, and I just started my business in January. How I met Rachel is through Prenda. I worked at Prenda for 4 years, co-hosted a podcast with them. It's a really great podcast. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Kindled, with a capital ED at the end. And so I got to do parent workshops and guide trainings and all of the things to help adults understand kids so that we can get the kids to not be such a source of stress, as I said. So in January, I decided to start my business. Up and coming, I have some parent classes, and so I have a wait list right now. Those will be only 4 weeks long, not as much homework. It won't be as much of a transformation. The first one's going to be all about how to learn how to be a more playful parent, because play is the #1 way to discipline your kid, to get them to do anything, is through play. And a lot of parents don't like play, so it actually can be fun. And I'll have classes on sibling rivalry or sibling conflict. If your kids are constantly fighting, there's going to be a class on your own calm down strategies, and then there'll be another one about creating intentional culture, family culture. So I'm going to pass this around just so you can fill it out if you would like to join my newsletter. I have a weekly newsletter. I have a blog. That's why I decided to start the company, because I started a blog in 2018 called Raising Kids with Purpose. There's a ton of free resources on there, a lot of free printables. I have a few here and more tools here, but there's a ton. Everything from routines and schedules to sensory tools, raising hyperactive kids. I have lots of resources on there. And so if you would like to join my newsletter, and then what I'm going to cover here is just a tiny bit. I have a guide that's 19 pages, and if you would like me to send that to you for free, put an X there. So if you're interested in learning more about the classes, you're not signing up for them, you're just learning about them, you can fill that out. And also I have a giveaway that I will pick a random number at the end, and that enters you into the giveaway. Okay, next slide. Let's pretend, well, maybe we don't have to pretend. Let's pretend you had a really rough morning this morning. Your middle child was having a category 5 meltdown over the seams in the socks, and the shirt doesn't fit right, or can't find the right shorts to go with the shirt. And then your 8-year-old looks like a precious little angel sleeping, but you need that angel to be awake because you're already running late. And then your teenager can't find his Chromebook charger or Chromebook or homework, or they're just pure chaos in your mind. Get everyone to the car, get them to school. I don't know how it is here. I have 2 kids that go to a micro school that's very similar. So it's not that big of a deal if they're super late, but we still want to try to get them on time. And you are driving to work. Right before you get to work, you spill coffee all down. You walk in, your boss approaches you and looks at you and says, "What the heck are you doing? You're 15 minutes late. You better get into your office right now. Do not be late for that meeting. No lunch break for you." Would you be motivated to do a good job? You're covered in coffee, you had a rough morning. Would you be motivated to be resilient and bounce back? Would you be motivated, or would you feel confident? Probably not. Now let's revisit that morning. It's crazy. Kids are running around everywhere, you rush in, you can't find shoes, you get into the car, drop the kids off, hit traffic, you're even later, you have coffee all down in front of you, a bird is in your hair, you're walking into the office, like it's just an absolutely terrible morning. Get into the office, you want to sneak into the bathroom so you can clean yourself up before you have to get to your first meeting. See your boss as soon as you walk in. And the boss says, hey, it looks like you're having a rough morning. What can I do to help? Now, you feel the difference of that? Would you be motivated to do a good job? Hey, you don't even have to go to that first meeting. You can run home, get dressed. Now, of course, if you're late every single day, there will be a consequence and you'll probably get fired. But if this is just a one-off thing, we all have this need and desire to feel seen and heard and understood. So the difference between the two is correction first. And a lot of us were raised by behaviorists or went to school where there was behaviorism rooted in punishments, consequences, trying to get you to do the thing and behave at all costs. And then there's the connection first. I see you as a human. I see that you have needs. So our kids are no different. In order for them to be resilient, to have confidence, all the things that we want our kids to grow up to have, is we need to shift from this behaviorism approach, which in America is very, very prevalent and still is, to this neurodevelopmental approach. What we're going to talk about today is understanding behavior. I'm going to try to make it a little fun. I'm just not just going to stand up here and talk at you, so there'll be some opportunity for participation. We're going to talk about the brain science behind what behavior actually is, the nervous system connection. There's some framework and some tools I'm going to give you. How I got into this is because when I had my first son, who's almost 16, within days, I was like, what the heck did we get ourselves into? This baby needed to move constantly. My sister-in-law had a child right around the same time as I did. She would just sit down, her baby would just sit on her lap. Not our son. To get him to sleep at night, we'd have to run up and down the steps. My husband would be pouring with sweat. We had no idea what we were doing. Then he turned 2, and I remember clearly multiple nights he had just started daycare, and he'd come in the living room and rev up and get ready and take off until he would literally try to knock himself out. Again, what the heck did I birth? I had no idea what to do. I went to daycare and I asked them, because they work with children, what to do. And what they told me was, don't let them do it. Great. Any of you have some sensory seekers and you just try to stop them from trying to get their sensory input? We didn't know, we had never even heard of the word sensory. I was looking in the parenting books, not for bad behavior, because he wasn't doing anything that needed discipline, he was just crazy. And there was no crazy in the end of these books. With that, I started to learn about the brain, the nervous system, learning about what I really wish those daycare providers told me was why. If you have kids that behave a certain way, why? Why are they talking back? Why are they refusing to do what you're asking? Why are they not listening? Why are they losing their mind over getting the blue cup instead of the red cup? So we're going to look, and that's what the iceberg exercise is all about that we'll get to. Okay, so if you haven't already, on your sheet is writing down behaviors that make you question your parenting or behaviors that you find challenging. So if you have lots of kids, you can choose whatever you would like, or any behaviors that cause you to raise your voice or to repeat yourself over and over and over again. And then how do you label that behavior? And then you're going to write down a strength or some other quality you enjoy about that. So we're going to revisit that in a few minutes. And I'm ready for the next slide. Okay, so you guys are going to call out You'll have some time to keep writing the behaviors down, keep thinking about it. I do it at the beginning so that it gives you some time to think about it. I'm going to call out some behaviors and you're going to yell out like typical responses. So resilient kids just naturally what? They just bounce back. When you think of a resilient kid, what do you think? They what?
They get it.
They get it. It's natural. What else?
Move on.
They just move on. They're tough. They're non-emotional. They're tough. They can tough it out. But really, the truth is, resilience is built through supportive relationships and learning to navigate challenges with help, not just being on their own. And we're going to do a demonstration about why that is, because the brain is super under construction until about age 30. Some of you may still have brains that are still working and still developing.
Can you repeat that just one more time?
Yes.
The resilience is built through what?
Supportive relationships
Okay.
and learning to navigate challenges with help.
With help?
With help. Not doing it by themselves. They are wired to be in connection with you and we're wired to be in connection with each other. Okay, so the next one, if I make things too easy, my child will what? Be lazy.
Take advantage.
What's that?
Take advantage.
Take advantage.
Weak.
Weak. That's what I have. Winner, winner. The taking advantage is interesting, or the being disrespectful is interesting, because a lot of times, especially depending on their age, they don't even have the cognitive skill to do that. That's what we are labeling that behavior based on our own experience growing up. So the truth is, children need just enough challenge with just enough support, and this is what researchers call optimal stress. So we do want to push them a little bit, right? We don't want to just create no barrier, or like remove all barriers. I'm sure you heard of snowplow parenting and helicopter parenting and all of those things. But we have to look at the optimal stress attuned to that child. This morning, my kid was not wanting to go to school because he was creating with paper. And it's Thursday. Apparently on Thursdays, his class is a similar environment, just like this. It's 40 students, it's a 1-to-10 ratio. And his class is in charge of the store on Thursdays. So that means they don't get to have recess. That really upsets him. And immediately I was like, oh, I need to call them and tell them. And I'm like, what are you doing? No, like, he's totally fine. And he gets to set up the store. He's learning so many life skills. But so many times as parents, especially today, and just have so much influence. And you just open your phone and your things are constantly screaming at you. Like, you're not the parent, you're not the parent. And so, but we have this instinct to just rescue our kids. So that's not resilience either. But now if he was not able to get himself into the car and he was just crying uncontrollably every single day, that's not optimal stress. That's when we need to advocate and we need to make some changes or a scaffold so you can get to the place where you can handle running the store. Okay, so then kids today are too what? Entitled. Spoiled. What's creating this entitlement and being spoiled? Us? No. Grandparents. The pendulum swinging like all the way over here. Like we're latchkey kids and it's coming all the way over here. They're too coddled. There's Watson is his last name. John B. maybe? He was a parenting expert back in the day, 1915, 1920. And I have it in my program, a quote from him. And it was all about don't coddle your baby, right? And it said, don't hold your baby too much, don't be near your baby too much. You can give your baby a high five in the morning. That's actually what the literature said, and that is what a lot of our parents and our parents' parents were trained to do. And now we know with brain development, all those babies need to be held and loved, and Again, because they are wired to attach to us. Okay, so the truth is kids today face unprecedented challenges, and sensitivity is often a superpower in disguise. So our kids, have any of you read Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt? Oh my goodness, I highly write that book down, Anxious Generation. Or follow him on Instagram. He has great content on Instagram, even though it's kind of funny because he's telling you not to be on technology. It is Anxious Generation. He is part of a big movement. A lot of schools are going phone free. He's kind of leading that charge because he's really looking at the data of teen suicide and anxiety rates, and it started right around 2009, 10 to 2014. And so our kids, just the sensory experience, the technology, I mean, the iPads, all of this, all the research is really coming out now. It's too much for the way our brains are developed. Now, as an adult, a lot of us probably didn't have that technology, I'm guessing. Not sure how, young the youngest is here, but the constant stimulation, the blue light, the technology, you walk into Fat Cats, walk into Uptown Alley, oh my gosh, those places are just so overstimulating. Just our environment in general, all the bright colors, all the processed foods, all of that is not really helpful for our kids' brains. And that is why neurodivergence is at about 1 in 4 right now. 1 in 4 kids have some kind of learning difference, learning disability, and it's because our environment is just too overstimulating. Okay, next slide. Here's the research on resilience. So a lot of us think the way we help kids, especially boys, be resilient is they need to toughen it out. And that's not the way the brain works, because if the brain is super flooded with cortisol, super flooded with stress, then it can't be resilient. Because what resilience is, here's my little brain. This is the frontal lobe. It's where the thinking brain, right? It's where the high level logic, rational thought. This is what we want our kids to be in or online all the time, but we're gonna talk about this. The limbic system is the emotional brain. And so resilience basically is helping create these neural connections from the emotional brain up to the frontal lobe. If it's flooded with stress hormones, with dopamine, the technology is a problem too because of a quick dopamine. We want our kids to be able to be bored, sit and play with each other, play board games. If that's slow dopamine, brains are getting burned out with dopamines. So we are creating all these connections down here, and there's no connections in the frontal lobe. Talk to any traditional kindergarten teacher, and they will tell you if they've been working for 10, 15 years, they're seeing so much more emotions. And that's because we're not helping them build those neural connections up to the frontal lobe. So here's all the other things about resilience. So when do you guys feel most confident? Like think about in your job or at home and parenting and whatever other roles you play. There's no right answer.
When my kids are sick.
When your kids are
When
what?
my kids are sick.
When they're sick, you feel confident?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Because I feel like I have so much knowledge on how to help them through it. And they're so grateful to that I'm there for them, that I'm taking care of them. And for some reason, they're just like angels in pieces.
I love it.
And they
You
have
feel most
asthma,
confident.
and so I just, having asthma kids for 7 years now, I just feel like confident because I've been in the hospital now for so long.
Yeah. That's amazing. And you can even tell you're radiating, you have confidence. What about in your jobs, just in life? Like when do you feel confident?
And I have the time and space to complete things.
Yeah.
And
Get that to do
it's
list then.
quiet, and it's not, it doesn't feel like I'm being pulled in 50 different directions.
You can slow things down.
Mhm.
And that's another thing, even us as adults, we have such a fast paced life. I mean, look at where we live here. I mean, it's house. We don't have woods. We don't have what our brains really need to be able to calm down. This morning, I was taking a walk and it was raining. I live in Surprise. There was a tree that was kind of down. I was if anyone saw me walking by, I was pretending that I lived in the woods. I was like, oh, there's green. I had my dogs. I was like, but just slowing down. I don't take my phone on walks. And we need that. We need to just slow down and get grounded. But when do you feel most confident?
Me?
Yeah.
About life, anything?
Yeah.
I feel confident at work, like you said. I feel confident with some aspects of my kids, but not all.
Why at work? Like, what makes you feel confident there?
I just feel knowledgeable in the job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of my safe places.
Awesome. So, and our kids are no different. They're needing all the same things that we do in order to feel confident, in order to be resilient. But again, somewhere along the way, we were told to just give our babies a hand. Okay. Okay, so I need some volunteers. You don't have to talk. You just have to come up here. So can I get 4 volunteers? Okay. So let's see if one of these are kid beds, but we'll see if
Oh,
you'll fit.
No way.
I need 3 more. Come on. Come on up. Oh, look at the dad stepping up. There you go. Okay, so we'll have you be, we'll have you be the best. There we go. You'll be the emotional center. Okay, someone needs to be the brain stem. Needs to be the brain stem. And then I need someone to be the neural connection. I mean, you can put it as anything with it. Okay, you're gonna be the neural connections. Okay, so this is your bag. You're gonna start with when I tell you. So I need you on this side, please. Thank you. Okay, so how many of you are super familiar with child brain development? Awesome. Okay. I'm always worried that everyone knows all these things. My husband's like, you're the only one that studies these things all the time. Okay, so you're gonna start with this one, and then you're gonna go to like what's stronger. So probably this one will be next, and then this one, and then we'll end with this one. Okay? Okay, so what is your name?
Steven?
Steven is the neural connections. Okay? So what's your name?
Sheldon.
Sheldon! Hi Sheldon. Okay, so he's the limbic system. Let me grab my actual brain. So this is the limbic system. It's where all the emotional centers are. And that's where memory and so many things that we do is connected to memory, connected to our subconscious brain. So many things that our kids do are connected to that memory. And then, what's your name? Ivy. Okay, so she is the brain stem. Safety first is her job. And then Danny. Okay, so he's the prefrontal cortex. And I put a T on the end. My Grammarly did not work. And this is so funny because that's the frontal lobe that should be have it spelled correctly, right? And that's the thinker part of the brain. Rational thought, executive function, organization skills, all of those things. Okay, so let me grab my notes. So 0 to 6 years old, what's most developed is the brainstem. There you go. What else is most developed, do you think? Limbic system, right? Babies are crying to tell us what they need. That's how they communicate. Okay, so then we have the neural connection. So he starts out with, you can, if you want, give them some neural connections. You're going to connect them. And actually, can you two switch? There we go, Sheldon, awesome. See, my frontal lobe is working, I'm remembering names. Okay, so a 0 to 2-year-old has almost 1 million neural connections a second. That brain is building fast. And then as the kids get older, and we'll talk about once we get a little older, those neural connections are going to get stronger. So I'm not going to make him run around millions of times, but imagine millions of times this neural connection, they're connecting those parts of the brain. in the front.
I was like, what?
And for some kids, it might be fully offline. So there you go. That's very accurate. Okay, so then we have ages 6 to 12. This is the elementary age. So a lot of you probably have elementary age kids, right? So the brain stem still standing strong. So where's my brain stem? You're standing strong. You're still on high alert and you're still protected. Okay? So the neural connections are getting a little stronger, right? The limbic system, you wave, so your brain stem, limbic system, wave around. You're still really active, lots of emotions in the elementary years, right? Now, if you do have a child who's 8, 9, 10, still having meltdowns, tantrums, there's probably some disconnections happening up to that frontal lobe. So a neurotypical brain typically has a little more emotional regulation. I have a 13-year-old who we had a whole crisis 3 weeks ago because he's still having sensory meltdowns because of puberty, which we'll get to. That starts to screw everything up. And then we have the frontal lobe, it's kind of hanging out. It's slowly developing. You can help sometimes, but you're still really weak.
So should I let this thick one go?
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, see? Yeah, you're getting it. So these two are so much stronger than you in the elementary ages. Okay? So then, notice what this means. So your elementary child has a what? Fully developed emotional and survival, but we're working on that frontal lobe. A lot of behaviors are because of this, right? And how do they strengthen these connections? Through you, through your relationship, through co-regulation, which is you're using your body to breathe with them. You are actively building your child's brain, whether you like it or not. And you're actively building the brain through a good relationship or a bad relationship. It's still, Dr. Daniel Siegel talks about that a lot in his book, Parenting from the Inside Out, and The Whole Brain Child. And if you have any questions after, I'll try not to throw out too many books. I can tell you what those are. Okay, so then we have ages 12 to 18. Oh, this is fun. What do you think is happening with that age? Okay, so neural connections, here we go.
Do I get this one?
Okay, so in adolescence, yeah, you get that one. Well, I don't know. Sometimes those teenagers seem like they don't have a whole lot going on up here. So a lot shifts in the adolescent brain. And Dr. Dan Siegel, who I just mentioned, has a whole book on it called Brainstorm. I highly recommend it. And he talks about how a lot of teenagers do stupid things. And the reason why is because there is a disconnect up to here, and the reward system in that limbic system is a lot stronger. That reward is so much greater than what you can see what the consequence will actually be. No matter how many times we talk about the consequence, that reward is so much greater. And that's why, I work with parents. My very first client that I worked with, their son was having all these behaviors, and I was building out my program, and I had prayed, I'm like, God, I want you to bring me to whoever I can help and I can bless. No teenagers. Of course, this woman called me, she was bawling hysterically. Her son, he was smoking weed. He had wrecked 3 cars in 3 months since he had turned 16. He had attempted suicide. All of the behaviors that you would never want when you're a parent. And so we started with relationship. And within 4 weeks, they told me about their son. So understanding this is so, so important, and understanding why he was making all of these decisions and not just kept taking the phone away or keep taking the car away, really figuring out what was happening. Okay, so the connection highway, is getting thicker. Now we're moving into ages 18 to 25. Okay, so we're going to use this one here. Okay, so still alert, right? The brain stem is still alert, but is learning to distinguish what's actually emergency and not. When we were in those younger ages, everything's an emergency. Again, the red cup, the blue cup, that's an emergency to them. It might seem stupid to you, but that's because your connections are way stronger and you have a lot more cognitive skills to be able to go, oh, it's just a cup, but I still can drink water out of it. And then the limbic system is more controlled, still emotional, because this is interesting. The frontal lobe, a lot of us have probably heard that the frontal lobe fully develops by the age of like 25, 28, later in boys and girls. However, the emotional centers of the brain don't fully develop until about 32, which totally made sense of why I cried my entire 20s. I was like, why did no one ever tell me my brain wasn't developed? And then we have the prefrontal cortex. So ages, where are we? 18 to 25, stand fully upright. You're finally getting some real strength now. You feel that strength? And 18 to 25, you can start to override these two. These two can come down and you're starting to be able to make some decisions. And that's why, I mean, looking at this, it's like, why do we let 15-year-olds behind the wheel? But, you know, really it should be like 18, 19, 20 when they can make better decisions and they have more access to their frontal lobe. And then age 25, we are in full brain maturity. Well, for frontal lobe, like I said, emotional center, so probably like 32 is we are full brain maturity. And so that means the connection highway, you know, you can now, now this is a caveat, if you did not get the relationship, the connection, your core developmental needs met as a child, you may have pretty weak connections out to here. And so it's never too late. Our brains are plastic, but that's the work that I do. I help rewire some of these pathways and help strengthen that emotional regulation piece. That's a big one. Or I have a friend who works at JW Marriott in the kitchen. Oh my gosh, his boss flew off the handle every single night. It's like that cooking show that you would see where he's just screaming at him. I was like, oh, he probably doesn't have a whole lot of connections to his frontal lobe. And my friend was like, what? But because a lot of times, if we didn't get that again, there's a reason why we're so emotional as adults. So if we could do the work, we have the opportunity to give the best gift ever to our kids is to help them develop this way in that trajectory, again, through our own regulated nervous system. Okay, so you guys can drop all of that, and I'm fine if you just put it on there or on the floor. And then I'm just going to do this really quick. So if you want to go to the next slide. Okay, so stay up there because I have a few more things for you. Can I get 2 more volunteers? You're just have to stand, and it won't be as long. You want to come on up? There you go. Perfect. Okay, so in addition to the actual brain structures, we have developmental skills. We have cognitive skills, regulatory skills, social emotional development, physical and motor. Okay, so this explains why some of your kids, especially if they're neurodivergent, they may be super advanced. So I have a kiddo, again, who's autistic, and his language is super high. But so go super high development. His executive function and social skills are super low. Visual processing, super high. Auditory processing is about there. Motor skills are down at about an 8-year-old level. Tactile sensory is about an 8-year-old level. So this is the profile of my 13-year-old. Now, a neurotypical developing brain, so let's do like a 10-year-old. Everyone go kind of somewhere in here. So go up a little bit, down a little bit, there you go. So, you know, there's all those charts. Pediatrician, your child is unique and individual, but this is typically how the development goes, where it starts low and then it moves up and it moves up, and it might be stronger in some areas than others, but it's pretty much at the same pace. Now, if you have a gifted kid, if you have a kid who, again, has learning differences, it's going to be all over the place. So it's really important to understand that because that might be why they're struggling or behaving in ways that they shouldn't, because of their age, and it could be because they just don't have those developmental skills built in their brain. Okay, thank you, volunteers. That help you understand brain development, give you a crash course? Wonderful. to develop in a healthy way, psychological, emotional, healthy way, so that whenever they're an adult, they still may need therapy, but maybe not as much. Not because of you guys, I just meant in general, because being a human's hard. It seemed like I was pointing at you, I was not. Okay, so big behaviors are not defiance. What are they? They're development. So if you get one thing out of today is reframing. Behavior is not something to stop. Behavior is communicating something. Typically communicating developmental skills, so a lagging skill, they just don't have the skill yet. Parents get really frustrated when they have to repeat themselves over and over and over again. When you see this, the development, it makes sense when you have to repeat yourself over and over again because that's how they learn. We learn through repetition. We build those neural connections through repetition. Co-regulation, that's when you can keep your body regulated. Regulation is not the same as calm. Calm is where you have this inner peace. Regulated is whenever you could still be charged, you could still, have emotions, but you're mindful and you're aware and you're in control of what's happening. And so that co-regulation piece literally builds your child's upstairs brain. Or sending them to a school like this, way to go, parents, because this environment is helping them build that upstairs brain. A lot of our regular schools, I love teachers, a lot of them were trained to be behaviorists and just focus on stopping the behavior. My friend was just messaging me as I was coming here. She lives in Texas and her son is adopted. I think he was drug addicted at birth, and so he has lots of good behaviors, right? A lot of disconnections in his brain. And the school keeps calling her, and they're like, he keeps falling asleep. Is it medication? Is it this or that? And we're gonna get to it, but he's going into a dorsal vagal shift. His nervous system is so unsafe in that school because they're so focused on stopping his behavior that he's literally passing out and falling asleep every single day in class. So it's really important to look at if a behavior is happening, it's not just something to stop, or it's maybe they're not even in control of it. I hear that a lot too, is, oh, well, they're just choosing this. That brain has a long way to go until they have a lot of choice. Okay, and this is something that I learned from my co-host at Prenda, is brain maturation is loud, it's messy, it's emotional. How many of us were allowed to be loud? And we're allowed to be loud and emotional and messy growing up. A lot of that was stopped. And so again, that's why some of us may not have fully developed frontal lobes. Okay. And then you add trauma, which I have a lot of, and that causes issues too. Okay, so then iceberg theory. So you have your little worksheet. You don't have to fill it out now, it's more for you to take home. You can look at the behaviors you wrote down, and that would be at the top. So a kid screaming at you, or this morning my kid's like, no, I'm not going to school. Like that would be a behavior I would put on the top. But what's happening underneath? His autonomy was being taken from him and he can't go play at recess. So there's always usually something happening underneath. Overstimulation, overwhelm, just not having development. Impulse control, that's a pretty advanced cognitive skill, regardless if it's a neurotypical brain or not. Okay, next slide. Traditional approaches to behavior is what? Behavior happens, we give an immediate consequence or punishment, and we expect change. Now, how many of you can say you gave your child a consequence once and that behavior was changed forever? Right? Because brains actually don't learn through consequences. Consequences are simply the thing that happens after a kid does a thing. It's simply a thing. If consequences worked, none of us would speed, right? On my way here, I was not speeding too much, but I'm still speeding, and I know that I could have a consequence of getting a ticket, right? It doesn't stop behavior. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have consequences, so I'm not saying that we don't need to, or that we need to validate all behaviors. No, kids need to learn, but if you're using the consequence and punishment to change their behavior or to teach them one of these skills that we talked about, it doesn't work like that. And so then the brain-based approach is behavior happens, we help them regulate, we figure out why they're behaving the way they are, We connect, we understand first. I have a little worksheet up here. I have a common study framework that I teach in my program. I had printed these for yesterday and had some extras if you wanted one that basically helps you learn how to regulate yourself first, and then we focus on the child. So then we want to get to problem solving, and we want to help them actually learn the skill. If a child is screaming at you, crying, angry, that is not the time to teach. I know this, and my 13-year-old was losing his mind, cussing at me because he was so disconnected from his frontal lobe. And what did I do? You can't talk to me like that. If anything, that's just going to keep them more dysregulated. So I've become like my own parent coach, having to coach myself in that moment. Adrian, you're safe. He's safe. Let's get him to safety. Let's get him to safety. And I'll say it out loud so he can hear it, I can hear it. I have a ton of sensory regulation tools that I use for myself and use for him. Okay, next slide. Here's really simple 3 R's. So the common study is a little deeper, whereas this is just really simple. You can start using it tonight if your kids aren't asleep and you get home. 1 is regulate. I see that you're upset. Let's breathe together. You want to calm your nervous system first. If they are hijacking, where's my brain? We have this amygdala, this little tiny piece, but man, it can cause a lot of ruckus. If their amygdala is hijacking your amygdala, that means mom or dad takes a little break. And if you have really little ones, I know that's harder, so breathe through it with them. But if I need a second, I'm really upset. Not you're making me upset, because then we're making them responsible for our emotions, because we can't handle our emotions. But again, you may have grew up in a home where that, you were made responsible for your parents' emotions. And then we want to relate. Empathy and validation go a long, long way. Is, oh, I see you're really frustrated right now because your socks don't feel right. Even if you think you wore them yesterday, I don't know what the big deal is today, just validating. Because like the story at the beginning, we want to feel validated, right? We want to have someone see us and see our experience. A lot of parents think empathy leads to permissiveness. It's actually the opposite. And typically, I can tell you, even with kids that are very intense and have very hard behaviors, we don't have to deal with behaviors as much. Now with my son, it's because of puberty, we were able to find some brain balance support, and we're doing some more therapies with him. But with my other boys, because we have such a level of connection and trust that it's even simple, hey, can you say that again? That's all it takes. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Mom. Because that connection is there. And they are not in fear of constantly in trouble. Because if they are compliant through consequences and punishments, it's typically because of fear, or they're shut down, or you have kids like my 15-year-old who just doesn't care. We started out legacy traditional, and that did not work out so well for a kid that does not care about the rules. And then reason is problem solving, when calm. This is whenever we can get to that. So my story with the morning, that is not the time to talk about the plan for clothes for the next day or to get the child out of bed, because everyone is kind of heightened in their nervous system. So we want to wait until maybe after school. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. I don't even know what time it is. What time is it?
6:54.
Okay, so I'm going to rush through these last bits. Okay, so nervous system, I'll give you a crash course in the nervous system. Green, this is where we can regulate. This is called ventral vagal. It's your highest sense of self. You're anchored in a place of possibility. We have what's called a social engagement system. This is why play is so powerful, because play turns on the green pathway in our kids' brains. It is their language. Then we have red, which is our sympathetic state. Anyone know what that probably is like? Emotional. When you're angry, you're frustrated, you're overwhelmed. Our kids too, we all have nervous systems. That's fight or flight. And then as I was telling you about my friend's son, we have dorsal vagal, which is the shutdown. That's the possum brain. And then there's another piece of the nervous system where fawn, we're people pleasing, but this is more like what's happening emotionally. And when we're helping our kids, the way we can really build their frontal, those connections up to the frontal lobe, is if you can just keep it tippy toe up into green. You can be kind of down and sympathetic and charged, but try to have some awareness of how you're feeling in your body. Okay, next slide. So self-regulation is really not a thing, especially with kids. It's really co-regulation. Right now, all of your nervous systems are interacting with each other. Even if you're not choosing to, are the energy. That's why I really struggle with Zoom meetings, because my brain is so confused. I'm a highly sensitive person by the plastic. Whereas I love being in person because I can feel, your energy. Okay, next one. And if I go through too fast because I want to get through these last slides, I can send you all the answers to everything. So co-regulation, we've already pretty much talked about this. I was going to have you do an activity, but you can do this with your kids. Something I love, love, love doing is just grabbing my child's hands. Is it okay if I grab your hands? And then immediately I saw, isn't it crazy? Yeah, so that's mirror neurons. We have these, our kids literally are mirrors of us. So if they're behaving in ways, you might want to look and go, have I spoken like that lately? Because they are wired to mirror us. And so the best way to co-regulate is grabbing their hands, if they'll let you, not if they're flailing and all that, or at nighttime when they're going to bed, just their body against yours, and just slowly deep breathe. It's amazing. So their breath will just automatically slow down. It's really cool, and that's how you activate that nervous system and their brain. Okay, next slide. So here's some simple regulation tools that we can practice right now. So everyone's gonna let a huge sigh of relief out. If you have teenagers and they're like, that's a good thing. A lot of parents are offended by that. That means their nervous system is releasing. We wanna celebrate that. That's really good. And we can sigh like that. In the car, my kids are so used to me, moaning is really good. It's a release of your nervous system, because what you're doing is you're triggering a vagus nerve that runs down from your brainstem all the way, it looks like a tree. And that's what turns on our brakes in our nervous system. Laughing, everyone laugh. Come on. Or you can even smile a little bit. So if you're starting to feel really frustrated, start smiling at your kids. They'll think you're weird, but they might start smiling too. Again, those mirror neurons. The booing, the boo. Everyone do this. That's really good to trigger that vagus nerve. Singing. That's why singing in classrooms is really great. Singing to move on to the next thing because that's triggering that vagus nerve. Okay, so grounding touch. You want to take both of your hands and just press them onto your thighs or your chest, your hands together. Feels good. This is called proprioceptive input. It's why some kids like weighted blankets, why some of you might like a weighted blanket. Grab your fist. This is my favorite somatic exercise. You just want to hold grab your arms. I don't know if you guys want to do this. But immediately I start calming down. So this triggers a response from when you were held as a baby. And if you have babies, it's really cool. But by the time we had our 8-year-old, and I knew a lot of this, every time to get him to sleep, I would go like this. At 8 years old, if he is having a rough time, all I have to do is go like this, because that triggers from when he was a brand new baby. And that was really calming and connected. Movement, so you guys want to stand up? Twisting, cross-body movement is so, so good. So this is not just for our kids. If you're on a computer all day long, I highly recommend you move your body throughout the day. I don't know if you want to jump, but this is really good for your lymphatic system. It feels good. But movement, walking is so, even if you take a 5-minute walk in between Zoom calls, that's really helpful. Okay, you can all sit down. Okay, the notes that we had talked about with your behaviors is can you now look at that and find the connection of where they are in their nervous system or in their brain state, what lagging skill? Are you able to look at the behaviors you wrote down and look at if you labeled them anything? And can you make the connection of what the behavior actually is? Anyone want to share? So what's a behavior someone wrote down?
I put emotional, so I'm assuming that deeply empathetic learn.
Yeah, so what this is if you labeled it as like sensitive, right, then there's usually strengths that are under there. So there's another book called The Strength-Based Parent by Leah Waters, and she is a positive psychologist, and she talks about how so many of us in our systems, and you look at the pediatrician systems, the IEP systems, all of those systems are focusing on the deficits. And so it's easy to just look at our kids from a deficit lens, but instead we can go, ooh, what strength do they have? Or they're very loud and vocal, or my son who is getting in trouble every single day at school. What's the strength within that? He's a leader. Let's build him up as a leader. And so you can really help cultivate these things that society may look as a deficit, or we may look at as like a bad behavior or behavior that drives us crazy, and we can elevate the character or elevate the character trait or elevate the strength. Okay, so next slide, I think I'm about done, yes. So here's some other real life tools and strategies. If you just want to take a picture of that, so
Are you sending us this slide back?
I can definitely send you guys a slide deck for sure. Mantras are my best friend, especially having a child with sensory meltdowns. When he has a 45-minute meltdown, I'm golden. If it's over an hour, my nervous system starts to get tired, and he starts to pull me down, and it's mantras are huge. Instead of my kid's having a hard time, or he's going to hurt himself, or all these thoughts, because our thoughts create our emotions, and then that creates our actions. So mantras are really huge. Slowing everything down, activating your parasympathetic system, and then just, lots of different kind of tools. Timeouts are not a great tool because our children need you. They need your regulated nervous system, and you're sending them away. I mean, I have so many memories of being sent away to my room. I would scratch myself till I bled. And my parents were like, oh, we should probably get help for you. It was just like, stop doing that. It was just another behavior that was not okay. That's because I needed my parents so badly in those moments. And so when our kids are having a hard time, they really, really need us to be able to give them that regulation. And again, because we are actively building their brains. Okay, next slide. This is a long view, right? We're not raising kids forever. And for those of you that have teenagers, I'm sure you see that it is happening fast. I feel like I'm holding on to the 8-year-old as long as possible. We have such an opportunity to be able to shift the way that we treat kids. I mean, it's been tough in the world, right? Just constant tragedies, and we're so bombarded by all these messages. And I always think, what was that child's childhood like? Were they seen? Were they heard? Were they understood? And as parents, maybe, again, you didn't get that. There's help. And there's so many different facets of help to be able to, as an adult, get those needs met so that we can support our kids. There's a framework called NARM. It's Neuro-Affective Relational Model. And it talks about the 5 core developmental needs, which is connection, attunement, trust, autonomy, and love. So the connection is with each other. The attunement is like knowing what you need, like being able to advocate for yourself, and attuning to your own body and attuning to other people's. Being able to be healthy in relationships. And again, as adults, a lot did not get all of those core developmental needs met, but as a gift to our kids, we can break those patterns. Okay, next one. And then this just talks about the ripple effects of you help one child, and you're changing the trajectory, and you're able to really help actively build their brain and how that ripples out into humanity. Okay, next one. And then we give you hope and encouragement. Progress is not linear. I'm working with a mom right now, and she decided to remove all iPads, all screens. Her kids are 4 and 6, and they were on them 5 to 7 hours a day. She homeschools. And she's having lots of behaviors. Can't even do school with this kid. He can't sit down, he can't focus. But he just begs me all day long. And so they removed them. And so his behaviors were showing that of withdrawal. And his behaviors got really hard. She's like, well, this is supposed to be getting better. And I'm like, progress is not linear. You're gonna have ups and downs. We're human, right? If you just do everything that I say, you're not gonna have a perfect day every day. We're gonna move up and down this ladder multiple times in a day, let alone in a week. So also, just wanna let you know, just you being here is huge, and wanting, to learn about parenting on a Thursday night. I mean, that's amazing. And remember, kids' brains are under construction. And once we know better, we can do better. And once we know better, we can help them advocate for themselves. Teach your kids about their brain. My kid can tell you where the cerebellum is and the amygdala and the brainstem. And sometimes we'll be like, my amygdala's in charge right now. Which is so funny when strangers are like, what did he just say? But I mean, imagine if we understood brain development. I asked you how many of you are familiar with brain development, and not a single hand went up. So how amazing of a gift, again, that we can give to our kids. Okay, so last slide is the guide. Again, we sent the clipboard around. If you want, the 19-page guide has a lot of these practical tools. There's a lot of worksheets. It's not just more knowledge. I'm all about practicing. People, do discovery calls with me all the time, and they're like, I already read all the books. I've already done all the things. I just can't put it into practice. And so that's what a lot of my resources are, for you to actually practice and do them, and it becomes part of just how you parent, instead of having it to be one more thing. I have an Instagram account that, if you are on Instagram, I love engagement there. I do a lot of just like tips and reels and things like that. And again, my website has lots of resources. And if you want to grab the guide right now and not wait for me to send it to you tomorrow, you can scan that QR code and it'll instantly come to you.
Is that QR code on the slides that we went over today?
What do you mean?
The
Like
slide.
this is part of the slide deck.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep. Mhm. Any questions? Anyone learn something that was new to them? I'd love to hear it. What was new?
I always kind of knew that like the behaviors, there was positive sides to the behavior. Like with my daughter, she was very like argumentative, I guess. Early on even. I was like, all right, I already tried kind of like raising my oldest son's a certain way. With her, she's a little different, and I already kind of knew to like try and raise her a little different because she was different in that way.
And what do you
But I
mean by
mean-
different? What do you do?
Like in terms of when she's like being argumentative, like not just telling her to stop,
Yeah?
and kind of talking her through.
We kind of encourage it in our kids to like speak up for themselves. It's like, okay, I told you no, but give me 5 reasons why. And like negotiation is actually a good tool. I mean, how many of you have to negotiate in your jobs or in life? But then when kids do it, we're like, no. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, now that she's getting older though, it's like getting harder. So
Yeah.
So this is.
Well, and it can also be a fight for
refresher.
autonomy. So there's self-determination theory as well, which is the theory of motivation, and that is being connected, similar to the core developmental needs, but being connected, relatedness, and competent. So we have a need to feel competent, and then to have autonomy. So that's a really big piece too. She's probably just needing, and some kids have more vulnerable nervous systems than others, or have a high need for control. So my son, his expression of autism is not on the DSM-5. It's called PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance. So any demand, go brush your teeth, put your shoes on, sends him immediately into his fight or flight. So I've learned a great tool, which for all kids, and write this down, it's called declarative language. Linda K. Murphy, and I'll put this, when I send out everything in the slides, I'll include the interview we did with her. She wrote a book called Declarative Language Handbook. It's teeny tiny. I should bring it with me when I talk, because I talk about this tool all the time. It is the best way, especially with your daughter. It's where you speak declaratively instead of imperatively. So then she doesn't have this need to argue with you. She's able to use her frontal lobe and make her own decisions. So it's things like, hey, instead of go put your cereal bowl in the sink, you would say, your cereal bowl's sitting there. I have friends that told me, they're like, that would never work. And then they try it and they're like, what? Where I was telling a friend about it, and her son's 5 and he is autistic. I was taking his pictures because I'm a photographer. And I'm telling her about declarative language. And so right then, I didn't even know if she did it. She was like, hey, your buckles are ready for you in the car. And in the car, buckled up, she looked at me and she said, Adrian, he has never, ever buckled himself in the car before. So just making statements. Your shirt's sitting on the floor. Now, my teenager, he's like, will you stop doing that declarative language crap? Just tell me to pick my shirt up. But with my kiddo that has an extra vulnerable and sensitive nervous system, declarative language for the win. It is the best tool.
That might work for me.
It works really well for husbands, actually. Because in my program, typically the husband joins too. And in the first family, it was so funny. I was doing a live coaching session with them, and the wife looks at the husband. She's like, "Do you realize I used declarative language on you all week this week?" Because she was like, "Hey, I noticed and I wonder." Those are the 2 statements too. She's like, "I noticed that the car was kind of dirty," and then he went and got it washed. And she's like, "Normally it would be a battle." So just, I noticed, I wonder. You're just taking off the demand because no one likes to be told what to do, and kids included. And they're told what to do a lot. Way more than us as adults. Any other questions or comments?